So first of all, when I get people coming in asking about the trade, saying, I want to work in the trades, and I'm sure a bunch of us get the same questions by clients, job seekers saying they're interested in the trades. Well, the first thing we have to find out is drill down and say, well, what exactly do you mean by the trades? Because to different people, trades means different things. The trades, there are actually 4 skilled trade sectors. The first one's construction, and that's what I tend to hear the most of is construction electrician and plumber. Those are the 2 most competitive trades in Ontario to find an apprenticeship in. I've heard the construction electrician one likened to winning the lottery twice in a row and then getting struck by lightning. I mean, I don't want to discourage anyone from looking into an apprenticeship for that trade, but it is difficult as long as people know getting into it that it will be difficult to find an apprenticeship straight off as a construction electrician without prior experience or prior knowledge or you know, some training, anything like that to get your foot in the door a little bit. It will be difficult. But the construction sector seems to be what people think of most when they think of the trades. They may also think of the industrial sector, and that covers things like CNC, tool and die, industrial electrician, which is different from construction electrician, millwright, things like that. We do have some manufacturing areas, and so you may also have that in your area as well. So you have people thinking about industrial apprenticeships. Service sector is one that doesn't really get looked at as much. You have your hairstylist. Many people realize that hairstylist is an apprenticeship, is a regulated apprenticeship, so you must go through an apprenticeship to work in that trade. There's many others under the service sector, such as child development practitioner, which used to be called ECE. It is called ECE, except for an apprenticeship is called child development practitioner. Information technology call centers falls under this trade as apprenticeships. Child and youth worker. There are a lot of trades under the service sector that may not be widely recognized as trades. So it's interesting, you may have someone coming in who's maybe not as academic, they want to work in that occupation. Well, maybe an apprenticeship with on-the-job training might be the right route for them instead of going the academic route. They might be more successful that way of doing the on-the-job training. And the last sector is motive power. So by this sector, just think of anything basically that has an engine. There you have your automotive, truck and coach, RV. I had someone who wanted to be a ski lift mechanic in the winter and a golf course lawn technician in the summer. He thought, you know, he could ski and golf would be perfect life if that worked out. And I thought, well, you're thinking. You've got it made there. So those are the 4 skilled trade sectors. So when you're talking to someone about the trades, you can drill down and say, okay, well, let's talk about the 4 sectors, construction, industrial, service, and motive power. And sometimes that helps us narrow down what types of trades that they're really interested in if we're doing an assessment of some career exploration. There's 156 apprenticeable trades in Ontario. Okay, so that's a lot of trades, and all those, let me zip back there. There's 156 apprenticeable trades in these 4 sectors. So that's a lot of trades, and every trade is different. But the apprenticeship system in Ontario is the same. It doesn't matter which sector you're in, the apprenticeship system is the same for all 4 trade sectors in Ontario. So the first step with an apprenticeship is 90% of your training is on the job. So that's why I'm saying it might be a great route for someone who's maybe non-academic and they're more hands-on, more kinesthetic learner. Your on-the-job training could last 2 to 5 years, depending on the trade. Each trade is different for the amount of time you have to put in of on-the-job training and the in-school portion as well. For example, construction electrician is 9,000 hours, whereas hairstylist is 3,000 hours of on-the-job. Okay, so each one is a little different of how much time you have to put in. And you can find out the information of how much time you have to put in on the College of Trades website, collegeoftrades.ca. When someone does their on-the-job training, they're given a book called Training Standards. It's also called Schedule of Training. They have 2 different names for it. In that book is a list of all the skills that individual is going to learn while they're an apprentice. After each skill, which is about a paragraph long, there's a place for the employer to sign, the apprentice to sign, and they date it. And they work their way merrily through the book learning all the skills. This book is really useful, and because when you're talking to someone about the trades, maybe they have some experience in it already and they're trying to write a resume or prep for an interview. If you pull up that training standard from the College of Trades website for that trade, you can get all the information from it. So for resumes, for interviews, for even just trying to do some career exploration, decide, do you really like what you're going to be doing in this trade? Here is the secret book of everything you're going to learn in it, as well as the curriculum for the in-school portion. It's all on the College of Trades website for pretty much every trade is on there. So that's a great resource. That's a little secret resource there. Okay. So they do their 90% of on-the-job training. So everyone here is good at math, and I'm sure you can figure out how much in school you have to do. Da, da, da. It is 10% in school. Big surprise there, right? So 90% on the job, 10% in school, and this is true of every trade. Okay, so you can remember that when you're talking to people, 90% on the job. And I'm going to repeat myself a lot. I'm from one of those old adages that the more you hear something, the more you remember it. I know that's true of myself, so you're going to hear me repeat myself a lot, and that's wise, because some of these things for myself I know will stick in my head easier if I hear them more, so I'm hoping they'll help you out a little bit too. So the in-school portion, every trade again, is different from that of in-school. Percentage-wise is 10%. But it could be 1 to 3 levels of schooling, and you will also hear the term blocks, because most people do the schooling in what's called a block release. They take a block of time off work. The block of time can be anywhere from 6 weeks to 12 weeks, but averages 8 weeks long per trade. So they could take 8 weeks off work and just go to school. So it's called block release because you're taking a block of time off work to go to school. You don't normally do your in-school portion until after you've worked for a year as an apprentice for that employer. After you've worked for a year as an apprentice, you're given a letter from the ministry stating it's time for your schooling, and they're given their choice of where they want to do the schooling. So for example, maybe they are in Sudbury and they want to stay local. Maybe they are, maybe they want to go someplace where they can do skiing in the winter, whatever it is. In the in-school portion tries to be, they try to schedule for times when that trade is traditionally not as busy. So for example, brick and mason, they do try to schedule the in-school for February, January, when it's too cold for mortar to set outside, so there's usually layoffs happening in anyway. So a block release is when they take that 8 weeks off work and go to school. They usually work for a year, take 8 weeks off, you see my little chart there, go back to work for the rest of the year, so the other 10 months, go back to school for the second block, and do that until they've fulfilled all the requirements of the in-school and on-the-job hours required, okay, if they do it that way. Night school is also available sometimes depending on your area. So maybe 1 or 2 nights a week they go to school, the rest of the week they can still work. My brother-in-law did it that way and he was absolutely exhausted, but he still had a full wage coming in. It did take longer to do the schooling, of course. Day release is becoming very popular. So depending on what's available in your area, day release may be available, and that means 1 day a week, maybe Mondays, maybe Saturdays, they go to school. The rest of the week they can still work. So they don't have to worry about missing that wages, and the employer doesn't have to worry about missing out on their workforce. Online learning may also be available too, depending on the trade. Some trades really lend itself more to online learning than others. So for example, special events coordinator has some fantastic online learning programs. Other ones which may be more hands-on, they may not have as many online components, but they might still have 1 or 2 classes that may be available online. So that's just seeing what's available in the area. The ministry would be able to tell them all the different options when it's time to do their schooling. And the in-school portion is heavily subsidized through the apprenticeship system for the learner. Okay. So 90% on the job, 10% in school. They do all those portions that they have to do as part of their apprenticeship. Once they've done all that, then it's time for the exam. And I know this can be the scary bit, the exam part. They put in all their time, they're 2 to 5 years on the job, they put in their 1 to 3 levels of in school, and if they feel that they can be successful, they can write the exam. There's also some great exam prep courses out there. There's some online help available. So for example, anything that's a red seal trade, and I'm going to get into more later on what exactly is a red seal trade. There's a great website called red-seal.ca, and I'll have this down later as resources too. And that has some practice red seal exams on it. So people can go through and they can see, how successful they think they might be. If someone has some learning barriers or language barriers, accommodations can be made. They just have to talk to the ministry. The exam itself is multiple choice, and 70% is required to pass. Okay. So here is what you get when you go through the apprenticeship system. So when you go through the apprenticeship system, as I said before, you have your in-school portion. The in-school portion is usually held at a training delivery provider, either at a college, it could be at a union, it could be a private training institution. But when you complete that, in-school training, you get your program certificate. If it's at a college, you get your college program certificate. Once you put in all your hours of on-the-job and your in-school requirements for the apprenticeship, you also get a certificate of apprenticeship, also called a C of A. Okay? So you've done all that. Then you are now called a pending journeyperson pending. So you're not a journeyperson until you write that exam, but you're not an apprenticeship anymore, or apprentice anymore, because you've done everything you need to do to be an apprentice. Once you are a journeyperson pending and you can be scheduled to do your exam, you write your exam. If you pass your exam at 70%, you get your CFQ, your Certificate of Qualification. Some people, you might hear ticket, my license. It's your Certificate of Qualification. Now, some trades don't have an exam, so again, Special Events Coordinator is one. Institutional Cook was one, used to be one. There used to be no exam for it. And it used to be, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show my age here and say way back when, if there's no exam to pass, you could not get a CFQ because you did not get an exam. When the College of Trades came in, they said, well, that's not their fault there's no exam. They've done everything we've asked of them to complete an apprenticeship. So if there's no exam, there's nothing to fail, really. So they get their CFQ. And that's the way it is now. So, for example, Special Events Coordinator, there's no exam. If you fulfill all the requirements of apprenticeship, you automatically get your Certificate of Qualification. Institutional Cook is the other example I gave. There was no exam. There is now as of last year. So anyone who did their apprenticeship before last year did not have to write an exam. As of 2015, they now do have to write an exam to get their CFQ. Okay. Now, these are the three things you can get if you complete an apprenticeship. But you may not necessarily get all of them. So, for example, maybe someone completes all the requirements of apprenticeship and they get their certificate of apprenticeship, but maybe they don't schedule the exam, they don't pass the exam, they decide, oh, I don't need to do the exam, whatever it is. They won't have that CFQ. So, for example, I've been asked a question before when people are filling out the, a fabulous EOES registration paperwork of their highest qualification, apprenticeship or journeyperson. What's the difference? Well, someone might have completed the apprenticeship, but not have completed the exam to actually be a journeyperson or pass the exam. Okay. There are what are called voluntary trades, and I'm going to get more into that later as well. But that's a trade where you do not have to do an apprenticeship to work in that trade. If someone, say a roofer, okay, you don't have to do apprenticeship to work in that trade. You can go out and get on-the-job experience and work in that job and become an expert working in that job. If you have equal on-the-job experience as an apprenticeship equivalent, and after talking with the ministry, you both feel that you might be successful writing the exam, you can just write the exam and challenge the exam if you get permission from the ministry. If you do that, you do get your certificate of qualification. You are now a licensed journeyperson roofer, but you haven't done an apprenticeship, so you will not have a certificate of apprenticeship. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That just because you're a journeyperson doesn't necessarily mean you've completed apprenticeship and that you have a certificate of apprenticeship. And just because you have a certificate of apprenticeship doesn't necessarily mean that you've completed the final exam, so you may not be a journeyperson and have a certificate of qualification. So if anyone has any questions on that, feel free to write in. I know sometimes that can be difficult concept there because it seems like they both are one and the same, but they're not. It is broken down. Okay, so every trade out there, of the 156 apprenticeable trades in the 4 sectors, construction, industrial, motive power, and service, all fall under the same rules where you have 90% on the job, 10% in school, then you write your exam. Okay, bada bing, bada boom, you're licensed. So who is involved in the apprenticeship system? Well, you have the training delivery agent. As I said, that could be your college, your private training institution, your union. It's whoever's providing the in-school portion. The Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development, and I'm proud of myself of how fast I said that and actually remembered the new acronym. They're the ones who monitor the apprenticeship. Okay, so they have the same role as previously held. You'll hear the term sponsor. Many clients will hear the term sponsor and may not know what sponsor means. Sponsor is the employer. That's the person who is signing off on the schedule of training or training standards book that individual has learned the skill. Okay, they're the ones who are monitoring that apprenticeship on the employer side. It may not be the actual employer, business owner, it may be the journey person employed at that business or a skilled trades person. okay, at that business. And the Ontario College of Trades regulates the skilled trades in Ontario, so they're the umbrella that looks after everything to do with the apprenticeship system in Ontario right now. Okay. So we've talked about what the apprenticeship system is, and now is an awesome time we get to talk about legislation. And I could just hear a collective woohoo across the province as you guys are all, yay, legislation, right? And unfortunately, I can't hear any groans coming back in because everyone's mics are off. So I'm going to assume that everyone's extremely enthusiastic about legislation here. So all trades fall under the same legislation, okay, Ontario College of Trades Act 2009. Before that act came in, they fell under two different types of legislation, okay? And because they fell under different types of legislation, there are still two different rules for the sectors because of that they used to be under two different legislations, basically. So you have the construction sector on one side, and you have the motor power service industrial sector on the other side, and they fall under two different sets of rules. The same rules governing the apprenticeship system apply: 90% on the job, 10% in school, write the exam. However, there's different other different criteria that's involved. So the construction sector, they are hours-based trades, and by that I mean for a construction electrician, it's a 9,000-hour trade. And that means that individual is putting in 9,000 hours as an apprentice in that trade before they are eligible to write that exam and challenge that exam. Okay. In the other sectors, they're skills-based, which means industrial electrician. Okay, that's also a 9,000-hour trade. But when they get given that scheduled training, that book of all the skills, they're going to work their way through that book, and maybe they learn faster, maybe they have some experience going in, some knowledge already, some previous training, whatever it is, they can challenge that exam at 7,000 hours and knock a whole year off their training because it's more based on the skills that they've learned and that they can prove they have the skills rather than the time they put in. Okay, so that's the minimum time to challenge the exam. In the construction sector, there's 34 trades. Of the 42 trades, 34 of them include what are called ratios and or wage rates. Ratios are a hot topic in the news occasionally. That means the number of journey people an employer must have in order to have so many apprentices. They've all been reviewed recently by the College of Trades. Some have changed, some have gone up, some have gone down, some have stayed the same. And you can find all the information on the College of Trades website. Some trades, in order to hire an apprentice, they need one licensed journey person or one person with equivalent experience. Some other trades, maybe to hire a second one, they might need two licensed or people with equivalent experience, or 3 or 4 or even 5 people to hire a second one. Okay, and as you can understand, that can get difficult for smaller businesses to really take on a lot of apprentices. So as I said, these were all reviewed recently, so all the new rates are on the website, the College of Trades website. That only applies to construction sector trades though. You know, I know many times when it's talked about in the media, it seems like that governs all the trades, but it doesn't. It's only 34 trades out of the 156, which is still quite a few, I know. In the construction sector, the minimum education requirement is grade 10 for most of the trades. There's still very few that require less. I believe water well driller requires grade 8. That being said, that education requirement, as I understand it, is also being reviewed at the College of Trades level too. The other sectors, motor power, service, and industrial, all require a grade 12 in order to become an apprentice in Ontario or the equivalent. They will look at GED and they will look at ACE, okay? Except for assistant cook, which requires grade 10, instrumentation and control technician, and tractor-trailer commercial driver, which also requires grade 10. Just a little aside here, tractor-trailer commercial driver is being, as we all know, the education is being regulated and mandated soon, where they are looking at all the training delivery agencies, and it's going to be, you know, really regulated. We're going to see how that affects the apprenticeship system in regards to tractor-trailer commercial driver as well. I haven't been able to find any information yet of any decisions being made, but we'll see what happens there. It's kind of exciting if you're a skilled trades apprenticeship junkie like me. All the trades, you have to be 16 years of age minimum. Okay. When they put in the apprenticeship application for apprenticeship training, If someone's 16 to 18 years of age, they do a print form and they mail it in. If someone's 18 years of age or older, they do have to complete it online because they don't need their parent's signature on it, which they do if they're under 18. Okay, so 16 years of age minimum, grade 10 for construction, grade 12 for the other sectors, and skills-based for the other sectors, and hours-based for construction. Okay. Now, those are the two different rules for the trades. Among all the sectors, there are some trades which are called Red Seal. You might hear the term, I want to be a Red Seal cook, I want to be a Red Seal automotive service technician. I hear on the radio sometimes, we have a local restaurant that advertises we have a Red Seal cook on staff, right? So they're using that as, you know, for marketing. Red Seal means that that trade itself was written at a national level. So I'm not sure if you are interested, but how an apprenticeship becomes an apprenticeship, how a trade becomes an apprenticeship, is training deliverers and industry all gather together and say, hey, our trade should be an apprenticeship. They get the ministry on board and they write the curriculum, the training providers and the industry write the curriculum, they write the training standards, everything that needs to be learned as part of the apprenticeship. Okay, and they do that at a provincial table. Red Seal trades means that same thing happens, but at a national level. So that means everyone across Canada who is an apprentice as a cook is doing the exact same curriculum, the exact same training standards. They have to learn the same skills across the nation. So once they're licensed across Canada, across the nation. That's the only difference, okay? The exams are, of course, are a little different because they're what exams have been written at a national level, so they might have more or less questions. There's still multiple choice, still the same parameters, and there's 90 to 150 questions depending on the trade. Okay. I don't see questions about any of the Red Seal stuff yet. An actual little Red Seal is put on their certificate of qualification to show that, that they have a Red Seal. It used to be a completely additional exam that people would have to do. They would write their trades exam to get the CFQ, and then they would write an additional exam to be a Red Seal, which meant the creme de la creme, the really, you know, the top performers would get that Red Seal designation, whereas, you know, other people might not. Many people in the trades may not know that that is now you just write one exam, and it's the trade itself that's Red Seal. So by saying that you're a Red Seal cook means you're a CFQ cook, licensed cook in Ontario, as well as the rest of the nation. Okay. So it's actually, it is good to put on a resume to say you're a Red Seal. Here's where we're going to talk about compulsory and voluntary trades. So we talked about Red Seal, just means that that trade itself, you can go across Canada to work in that trade. You don't have to rewrite any exams. You don't have to, you know, redo your license, any of that if your trade is a Red Seal trade. Okay. We've talked about the apprenticeship system. It's 9% on the job, 10% in school. You write your exam. And we talked about the difference between construction sector and the other three sectors. Now we're going to talk about the difference between, oh, sorry here, wrong arrow. Okay, we're going to talk about the difference between compulsory trades and voluntary trades. And I alluded to this a little bit before. If I'm talking too fast, feel free to put in a question or feel free to put in the chat, you know, slow down or...
We have a question.
One more time.
So,
okay.
Corey, we do have a question. So who enforces wages in the construction sector?
Ministry of Labour. But the Ontario College of Trades is now taking over some of the duties of the Ministry of Labour of overseeing this type of stuff.
Okay.
And that's just recent.
Okay.
Yeah. The wage ratios are, let me see here if I can describe it. So, for example, general carpenter has a wage rate attached to it. And the wage rate is 40, 50, 60, and 80. So what that means is the first year someone is an apprentice as a carpenter, they must get paid 40% of what a licensed person at that place of business makes. When they're a second year, they must get paid at least 50% of what a licensed person at that place of business makes. And again, 60% and then 80%. It's not a percentage of what the provincial standard is, but what that person at that place of business makes. Okay. And yeah, that as well as the ratios themselves, so that's the wage rates, the ratio themselves as well, they're also looked at by the Ministry of Labour. They're going to ask for, when they're doing a site inspection, they're going to ask for apprenticeship cards to make sure that there's not too many apprentices on the work site in relation to the amount of trained people. Okay, I hope that answered the question. If not, please feel free to write in and ask for more clarification. So in regards to compulsory trades, a compulsory trade is one that someone must be an apprentice and they must be a journey person to work in that trade. You can't challenge the exam and say you have equivalent experience. You can't say, hey, I have so many years as a construction electrician helper, so I should be a second year or third year apprentice, or I should be able to write the exam, because construction electrician is a compulsory trade. You must be an apprentice, a registered apprentice. You must be a second year apprentice before you can even touch certain things, a third year apprentice before you can touch certain things. So you can't say that you have so many years experience when it's illegal for you to have that so many years experience of so many duties. I mean, you can be a helper, and that will definitely get your foot in the door because you have on-the-job experience, but you still must complete a full apprenticeship. Okay, and you must be a journey person to work in that trade. Automotive service technician. The Ontario College of Trades has hired what are called, they were called enforcers, and I'm not sure if they've kept that title or not, but I always want to see their uniform, see if they wear tights and a cape or something. But they actually do go to work sites. Garages are one place they're really targeting, and making sure that the people working as automotive service technicians are licensed journey people, because it is a compulsory trade. They must be, for obvious reasons, for safety reasons. Hairstylist is also another one that they were really looking at, going into salons and making sure the people who are doing the certain duties are either apprentices or they are journey people. The voluntary trades are ones that you don't have to be an apprentice to work in that trade. You don't have to be a licensed journey person. Maybe they have so many years of experience. They can challenge that CFQ test if they like, if they have the proof of experience. They also don't need, if they have enough experience, they can train an apprentice. So a roofer who maybe isn't licensed, but they have enough experience and have enough skills to train someone adequately, and the ministry will look at that, they can take on apprentices. Many employers don't know that, so that might open up some brand new opportunities for job development for you, to approach some of these to employers and say, hey, have you considered taking on apprentice? You don't need to be a journey person yourself to take on apprentice if it's a voluntary trade, as long as there's someone at that place of business who has the skills and the experience and the knowledge to train someone. People who are in that trade, a voluntary trade, and they want to challenge the CFQ, they can do that. If they pass, they do have to join the Ontario College of Trades, okay, because they have a new certificate of qualification. People who already had their CFQ before the Ontario College of Trades took over, they did not have to join the Ontario College of Trades when the Ontario College of Trades took over. I know that was an 11th hour decision by the government. At the College of Trades, they literally apparently had envelopes all ready to go to all the journey people, CFQ holders, and voluntary trades saying they had to join, this is how much they have to pay, and the money must be received by such and such a date. When the government came through and said, when we originally gave them their CFQ, we told them it was for life. Now we're kind of reneging on that and saying, well, now you have to pay us so much money a year, and that's really not fair. So they halted the process and said, okay, you don't have to join. You don't have to pay us an annual fee. You don't have to be a member of the Ontario College of Trades to be a CFQ holder in a voluntary trade if you already have one. However, since they're not a member of the Ontario College of Trades, and it's the College of Trades that makes all the decisions, when any new decisions are being made in their trade, they would not have a say. Okay, I know that may not seem fair, or may seem fair depending on your point of view, but because they're not a member of the College of Trades, they can't be part of the committees that make the decision of whether that trade becomes a compulsory trade, whether that trade becomes a red seal trade, whatever it is, they are not part of that. But if they do want to become part of that, any time they can join the College of Trades. The caveat, once they join the College of Trades, from my understanding, is they have to continue to be a member of the College of Trades. It's not go in, pay your money, have your say, back out again. It's you will have to continue to pay your money each year and continue to be a member of the College of Trades each year. Okay, so that's my understanding of the way it works right now. Whether that will change or not, we'll have to see. Okay. So the difference between compulsory trades and voluntary trades, compulsory, you have to be an apprentice or you have to be licensed to work in that trade. The College of Trades, and it sounds like I work for the College of Trades, of course I don't, but the website is very transparent. I do like their website because it has a list of all the trades in Ontario, it has the training standard for each trade, and it has a little symbol next to it that tells you if it's a compulsory trade or not. So it's fantastic for any clients that are doing their occupational research, okay? Or for you if you're looking up things for clients as well. So that is 9% on the job, 10% in school. It's called, the construction sector has things a little different than the other three sectors. Red Seal trade just means that trade itself was written at a national level so they can go across Canada with that trade. And compulsory trades mean you have to be an apprentice and you have to be licensed to work in that trade, whereas voluntary means you don't have to. You can get your experience on the job. You can get your experience at a college. So for example, ECE is a perfect one like that. You have your choice. If you're one type of learner, you might want to do the college route. If you're another type of learner, you might want to do the apprentice route. And I've had people do both routes. They do the college diploma route and then they do an apprenticeship, so they have both certificates there. So what is the actual step-by-step process of an apprenticeship? Well, steps to receive Q. When someone is starting off as an apprentice, their first step is to find an employer, and this is the hardest part. As we probably all know, it's the hardest part about apprenticeship is finding that employer in the first place. So I have some tips that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, but one of the best ones I can suggest is just getting their hands on that training standards book that's on the website, downloading it, printing it out. Some of them aren't very thick, 20 pages, so some of them you will want to put on a USB for them because they can be, 100 pages or more. And just going through it with the highlighter and finding out what skills they have and how they can be an asset to an employer right off the bat. Some trades, construction, electrician, and plumber being the two most competitive, and automotive can be very difficult as well. I'd recommend no training is bad training, of doing some pre-apprenticeship training for sure, possibly other types of training as well, some college or certificate programs, or there's one called CODA, College Diploma Program too. That's a fantastic way of getting some apprenticeship hours, getting some in-school done, and getting your diploma at the same time. Okay. So finding an employer is the first step. So we're going to assume this person has gone out, they've used all the job search skills available to them, and they found an employer who's hired them and taken them on as an apprentice. Okay. So they work for a year for that employer. After they work for a year, they do their first level of in-school training. Now, as we said, every trade is different for the amount of hours and the amount of in-school available. This example I'm going to give you is just the standard average of 3 levels in school. Okay, so when they're in school, they can access EI funds if they're eligible for EI funds, if they've worked for a year and they're eligible for EI. If they're not eligible for EI, after they've done the in-school, they have 180 days to apply for a grant of up to $1,500 to help pay for the expenses that they had. The in-school portion, the tuition itself, is heavily subsidized by the government. They actually pay about $10 a day for their in-school portion. But of course, as you know, there's additional expenses like transportation, and food is always a good thing, and having a roof over your head and things like that. So there's that non-EI eligible grant right now. If the trade that the person is getting their training in is a Red Seal trade, there are certain incentives out there for Red Seal because the government seems to want more mobility among the provinces and to encourage more people to go into the trades. So there's a federal grant for $1,000 incentive grant. Once someone passes that level 1 of in-school, the first block of in-school, the 8 weeks long, they have up to a year to apply online with transcripts, so proof that they've completed, and they'll get a $1,000 grant, to spend on books or tools, help them with the next level, whatever it is. They'll have that $1,000 to help them out. So once they've done that, they go back to, oh, yep.
Yeah, sorry, on that note, so how would you go about applying for the grant?
It says they would go to the local Service Canada office. They could talk to the ministry. We'll give them a brochure as well when they become an apprentice, and it's also online. I believe it's on the Service Canada website as well.
Okay.
Okay. They'll need proof that they've completed the school. So as soon as they get their transcript, I usually encourage people to do it. I've had people come in because you're only eligible for a year. I've had people come in the day that that was up, the year was up, with everything in an envelope to be sent off to Service Canada. So they took it to the Service Canada and handed it in person. Okay, so, but it is available online now, so that's fantastic. Then they go back to on-the-job training, okay, learning the skills from on the job from that employer. Once they've completed their 10 months or whatever the time is. Okay, wait a minute here. Oh, sorry. I clicked on that. There we go. Once they've completed the next that next block of in school, the same things apply for the next block of in school. They can, if they're eligible for EI money, they can access that during the in-school portion. If they're not EI eligible, they have 180 days to apply for that grant when they've completed the in-school. And again, if it's a Red Seal trade, they can also get the $1,000 incentive grant as well once they've completed it, the in-school portion. Go back to work again, learn some more skills on the job, and then do the third and final level of schooling if it's applicable. Many trades only require 2 levels. The majority require 3 levels. Very, very few only require 1 level of schooling. Okay. Level 3, that Red Seal incentive grant is not in play. Okay, that is only in play for the first 2 levels of schooling for Red Seal trades. But again, you can access EI supports during the in-school if you're eligible, and if not EI eligible, there is that that grant as well. Okay, so they have completed all requirements where they're in school. They go back to work if there's any additional hours they have to do, and then they write their exam. Once they've written their exam, if they pass, if it's a Red Seal trade, there's a $2,000 completion grant to say, congratulations, you passed, you're now a journey person, Red Seal journey person, $2,000 to help you get started. If it's non-Red Seal, there's a non-Red Seal completion bonus of $2,000. Difference is, Red Seal one, you apply, it's a federal grant, the other one is not, right, provincial. Okay, same amount of money though. It doesn't matter what trade it is, they write their exam, they pass, they're a journey person, boom, apply, get their $2,000. And that helps them get started in their new trade.
Another question.
Yep.
Corey?
Yep.
We see job postings who require 3rd and 4th year apprentices. What does that mean if there are only 3 levels in school?
That means they've done their usually 3 years of on-the-job experience for a 3rd year apprentice. Yeah. And a 4th year usually means 4 years of on-the-job experience. So construction electrician is a 9,000-hour trade. You can usually do about 2,000 hours a year if you work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, 2 weeks off for vacation. So 9,000 hours you can get done in about 4.5 to 5 years. So 4th year would be someone who usually has only about half a year to a year to go in that trade because they put in their 4 years, but they haven't put in the full amount. Again, 3rd year, same thing. They put in 3 years in that trade. Most trades it means they pass level 3, but some employers are more flexible on that as long as they have the 3 years of experience. I hope that helps. It is frustrating because many employers are requiring 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year apprentices. They want someone who can really be a benefit to them right off the bat, and it is really is a challenge to find employers willing to take someone fresh who is a 0 year starting out. So any tips that, any help that we can give them, a pre-apprenticeship program, if there's any free pre-apprenticeship training in your area. If it's free, it means it is funded by the ministry and that the curriculum is the exact same curriculum as the first level of in school. It is huge benefit because they get it's free, okay? They get their level 1. It also comes, it's usually about 28 weeks long, but it also comes with a placement. So they get some on-the-job training, and that employer may apprentice them as well. So they get some actual, they're a registered apprentice, so they're considered a first-level apprentice because they have, or first-year apprentice because they have the level 1 done, and they have some on-the-job hours already. If it's not free, because that term pre-apprenticeship training is not trademarked. So some places, some training institutions may call it pre-apprenticeship training, attached a price to it, but there's no guarantee that what that person is learning is the same curriculum as what's in the level 1 or the level 2 training as part of apprenticeship. So they might come out of that. As I said, no training is bad training. They should still give them an edge, still give them some knowledge. Hopefully, they've done all the research so they can see that is, a great training provider. But there's no guarantee they're going to get the level 1. They can challenge the level 1 at the ministry level and say, this is what I took. Does the curriculum equate to what this would be? Can I write an exam to challenge it? But there's no guarantee that they'll get it. If you see a free pre-apprenticeship training, maybe your college is offering some, colleges around you. Unfortunately, there's no master list of training providers for the pre-apprenticeship training, and as many of us know, when a college is approved for delivering the pre-apprenticeship training, they have very short turnaround to actually offer it. I know I go through all the college websites myself in my spare time when I have some spare time. Usually when I'm, at home watching TV because I have no life, and I look at the different college websites, see what's pre-apprenticeship training are being offered and when, and just chart it out. So when I do that next, I can make sure that that Janet has a copy and that it's posted someplace so everyone can access that if you want. So not everyone has to sit and go through all the websites when you're watching TV too.
Can I ask a question? Corey, we do have another question. So how does taking part in a college certificate or diploma program play in the whole scheme of apprenticeship? Example, what gets counted towards a school on-the-job hours?
Well, that's a good question. What gets counted towards in-school on-the-job hours?
Yes.
If it is a pre-apprenticeship program, they automatically get their level 1 because the curriculum is exactly the same. If they are registered as an apprentice as part of the program, so a CODA program is a great example because they are registered as an apprentice and their placement is an apprenticeship placement. So those hours are accrued as part of their apprenticeship system. If they're taking, say a 2-year plumbing program or automotive program or anything like that, they won't get any on-the-job hours because they haven't done any on-the-job hours, okay, unless they have a placement and they can, that employer is willing to apprentice them. Then that's fine. Then they can, as part of their placement, then they can accrue those hours as part of the apprenticeship. But if they don't apprentice them, then they cannot be accrued if it's a compulsory trade. The in-school portion, say a 2-year program in school, they may not get any levels done. They may have to still do all 3 levels as part of their apprenticeship because we can't see exactly what is in that curriculum and how it equals the curriculum as of the apprenticeship. They can, the person taking it can, it gives them an edge. It gives them a huge foot in the door when they're talking with employers too, over someone who doesn't have that previous experience and the previous training. But that being said, it may not earn them any time off the actual apprenticeship itself. Okay, there's no guarantee. They can challenge each level of school, level 1, level 2. They can challenge them to the ministry and say, this is what I took, this is what the curriculum, does it equal? They may have to write a test to say, yes, it equals, you do get your level 1. And or possibly your level 2. Very rarely do they also get a level 3 out of it because that's usually extremely specialized to the apprenticeship system. So it may, the quick and dirty answer is it may earn them some time off, but it's not automatic. The person will have to challenge and work for it.
Okay. Another question, if you're okay. Yeah, if you're okay with that. Mm-hmm. Can someone who completed the OYAP program in child development and decided to pursue the ECE diploma in college be considered a certified tradesperson?
No. The reason is because in the OYAP system, they don't complete the apprenticeship. In the OYAP system, which is fantastic because they earn hours off their apprenticeship while they're in high school, they don't, unless it's the accelerated one where they may get level 1, they may get level 2, but because of the nature and the time involved, they're not going to have enough time to do the complete apprenticeship as well as all 3 levels to write the exam in that very short amount of time they're as part of the OYAP program. Okay, so if they could be considered a first-year apprentice as well as have their diploma in ECE. So they could go back and finish some of it. They could challenge they could go to the ministry and say, with this diploma, can I challenge level 1 and level 2 and level 3 of the schooling, possibly, of course, level 1, unless they've done it as part of the OYAP program. And if they have some on-the-job experience, they can see whether they can simply challenge the certificate of qualification. Okay, they haven't completed an apprenticeship, so they wouldn't get a C of A, a certificate of apprenticeship, but they could see if they could simply challenge the C of Q once they have equivalent on-the-job experience.
Great, thank you.
I hope that answers that one as well. Okay.
Yep.
There is this little sidebar on the bottom that says if a trade is apprenticeship training tax credit eligible, that's what ATTC is here, I'm sorry about the acronyms, the employer could receive up to $15,000 subsidy over 3 years as taking on an apprentice. And that's not, the employer doesn't have to be eligible, the client doesn't have to be eligible, is if the trade itself is eligible. If it's one that the government has determined we need more skilled tradespeople in, it's up to $5,000 a year for the first 3 years of apprenticeship, so up to $15,000. This has been reduced dramatically. It used to be up to $10,000 a year for over 4 years, so it used to be up to $40,000 for an employer. Now it's down to $15,000, unfortunately, with the last budget. Okay, so I know that's a big difference for many employers. Okay. So that's the steps to apprenticeship right there. Some tips to finding an employer. As employment consultants and job developers, this can be a challenge to many of us, I know. Using that training standards to have that list of all the skills, that's going to be really invaluable. Cold calling is a mixed bag. As we know, many skilled tradespeople are very busy and they don't want to be cold called, and they get 10,000 people call them a day asking if they're hiring any plumber apprentices. Even just asking to be if you're hiring an apprentice. There's two different theories on that. One, it shows that you're motivated, enthusiastic, but on the other hand, it's kind of like asking someone to marry you on the first date. It's asking for that commitment from an employer. There's no guarantee they have to keep you during the whole apprenticeship, and you don't have to stay at the same employer during the whole apprenticeship. Indentured servitude is out, but saying, this is my goal after I've proven myself, that is what I find, tends to work the best. Many employers do promote from within into the apprenticeship system. So being willing to be a helper, a laborer, do what it takes to get into that employer to prove yourself, so with the understanding that you really would like to work towards an apprenticeship position, that really does make a big difference. There's many social media groups out there for apprentices, for aspiring apprentices in many trades, as well as for journey people in many trades. Those are great networks to join. Facebook groups, maybe not LinkedIn as much, some, depending on the trade. LinkedIn is very useful, some not so much. Twitter, but there's some great Facebook groups and forums, online forums, if someone knows how to access those, can be really useful for creating that network too. That free pre-apprenticeship training at a local college training institute or training delivery agent is very, very helpful. OYAP is someone's in high school, so when they're 16, 17, 18, whatever years old, they can be doing that co-op on the job, getting hours off their apprenticeship, as well as completing their high school diploma there as well. Okay. And as I said, number 5, start in another position in industry and work your way up. That's a really good way of showing the employer that, I'm committed to this. This is what I want, and I'm willing to show you that I'm going to be there for you, and I'm going to be an asset to you, and really not be a drain. I'm not going to, taking advantage of all of our incentives and grants out there as well. Helps with employers, but the number one thing, as most of us know, it's as we all know, it's with employers, it's not money, it's not so much show me the money, it's, are they going to show up every day and do the job and really be an asset to me? Okay, so being willing to show that's a big thing. So here is the big picture with how the ministry and how the College of Trades work together to put someone through an apprenticeship system. So first of all, the apprentice finds a sponsor. So I always tell them, use your local Employment Ontario Employment Services. We're one of the best resources out there, that's for sure. Doing that job search is the hardest part. It really is, and can be very difficult for someone. Sometimes working in a related industry. So maybe not starting right off if there's no automotive service technician apprenticeships available. Maybe starting off as a tire, wheel, and rim apprentice, fuel and systems installer apprentice. Anything else in the motive power automotive sector as an apprentice, get licensed in that. Or maybe in your second or third year, your way around a car a little bit, maybe then that employer is willing to take you into the automotive service technician apprenticeship. Okay, so something that's related would really help. Once they found that employer, Then they fill out an application for apprenticeship training. It's an online form. If they're 18 years old, it has to be completed in one session online, and they'll need some sponsor information like their contact information, start date. If that employer has already taken on apprentices before, they'll need that employer ID number with the ministry as well. Okay. So once that's been submitted, the ministry will contact the sponsor within 2 business days. Once they've contacted the sponsor, they're going to ask them some questions, make sure that, yes, the person is eligible for training, they're over 16 years old, they have the minimum education requirement, and they're going to make sure that employer has the required training abilities to train that person. Once they've established that, the ministry prepares a training agreement. Here it says registered training agreement, but it's not registered yet because now it's just a training agreement. They send it to the employer and the client for signatures. While they're doing that, they also contact the College of Trades, Ontario College of Trades, who then contacts the apprentice and says, okay, you're going to be an apprentice. It's now that you join us, you pay your $60 membership fee. They have 90 days to do that. That's it. Once they paid their membership fee and that training agreement has been sent back to the ministry verifies that fee has been paid, and they now register the training agreement. So now it's called an RTA, Registered Training Agreement, which means there's a training agreement that's been registered with the ministry and the College of Trades between that employer and that apprentice saying, yes, they're now a registered apprentice. They get given the book of training standards, they work their way through the book, they're now in the system, they get notified when it's time for their schooling, all of that stuff. They're now a registered apprentice in the province of Ontario. Okay. So here's how they work together behind the scenes, the ministry and College of Trades. So the ministry provides the scheduled training to that apprentice now that there's a registered apprentice, and they manage all the schooling, financial supports, all that stuff. In the schedules, they look after that with the apprentice. They're the on-the-ground, boots on the ground team right there. While they're doing that, the College of Trades, they contact the apprentice for annual membership renewal. They're also overseeing all the trades, so any decisions that get changed in the trades, changing from compulsory to voluntary, vice versa, anything that becomes a red seal, anything that involves the trades, the ratios, the wage rates, they're looking after all that at the same time. Okay, so then the ministry administers completion of all the training. So they make sure that level 1, level 2, if a level 3 is required, that is all being done. When everything is completed, when that apprentice has completed the 90% on the job and 10% in school, they alert OCOT that everything's been completed, and the ministry is the one that issues the certificate of apprenticeship to that apprentice and say, congratulations, you have completed an apprenticeship. Okay. OCOT changes everything, the classification on their system to say you're not an apprentice anymore, you're now a journey person pending journey person. They have to pay, excuse me, the exam fee. Once the exam fee has been paid, the ministry administers the exam, and they send the results to OCOT. OCOT does all the marking. They send the marks to the apprentice. They say you're now a journey person. Collect the annual fee for journey person. If anything has to be written or they do any counseling or anything like that for rewrites, they talk to the apprentice about all of that stuff and arrange all of that with the person. Okay, so that's how someone goes through from an apprenticeship to becoming a journey person, but this is the behind the scenes of how the ministry and OCOT work together while that's happening. So here are the costs and everything associated with the apprenticeship system. And I know we're running out of time a little bit, so if I'm talking too fast, please feel free to stop me. Costs, there is a $6 annual fee to be an apprentice in Ontario. The schooling is heavily subsidized, so it's about $40 per an 8-week period on average, and the exam fee is $150. So those are the costs associated with being an apprentice in Ontario as an apprentice. Okay? So that person is not looking too happy because they have to pay out some money. This next person is a little happier because, yes, they are paid wages. So the slogan for apprenticeship is you learn while you earn, because you are being a paid wage while you are an apprentice in Ontario. And we've already talked about what those wage rates mean. Okay. Incentives and subsidies, there's lots of incentives and subsidies out there, and they're always changing. They really are. So, for example, Canada Apprentice Loan is a non-interest-free loan for apprentices in Ontario to help with any cost they might have. There's loans for tools, depending on what sector they're on, is how much they're able to get. And again, it's interest-free while they're apprentice, as well as for 1 year after they're a journey person before they have to pay it back. There's incentive grant and the completion grant, which we already talked about. And I'd even cover our, Employment Ontario possibilities there too. every year every month it seems there's changes with the trade. So there have been some changes since I delivered this last, or some just a little bit more information about some of the changes. So the first one is there's this new mobility legislation out there that the government has put this mobility legislation to say that anyone who's an apprentice or a junior person in any province of Ontario can move to another province and not have to redo anything. They can contact the local apprenticeship office before they leave, make sure they have all the documents stating that this is what I've done, this is what level of apprentice I am. When they go to the other province, whether it's to Alberta or coming to Ontario from someplace else, they have that with them, and they don't have to restart anything. Even if it's not a Red Seal trade, if it's not an apprenticeship trade in Ontario, they can continue on right where they left out. Okay, and same with when they're, it would be temporary too. It doesn't have to be permanent change. So that's kind of exciting there. There's that institutional clerk CFQ exam. We've already talked about that one. Construction millwright has requested compulsory status in 2014. It is still being reviewed, and it's a long practice. What is being reviewed when a trade goes compulsory? A lot of things. So, for example, say a brick and stone mason, or say a cement pourer, cement mason wants their trade to become compulsory. They have to look at every single thing that is being done in that trade. So, for example, maybe making the wooden boxes for pouring the cement is part of that trade. Well, as soon as it becomes part of that trade and that trade is compulsory, it means no one else can touch that. So a carpenter cannot make those wooden boxes if that is what is determined as part of that trade and the trade becomes compulsory. So there's a huge decision of what becomes a compulsory trade. Okay. Sprinkler and fire protection installer became compulsory in 2014. This is the last year that someone can be grandfathered in without writing the exam. Heavy equipment operator is now a Red Seal trade, and heat and frost insulator as well as drywall finisher and plasterer, all Red Seal trades. So once they're licensed across Canada. And we already talked about the tax credit did decrease with last year's budget. All right, here are some great resources. The Canadian Apprenticeship Forum is national, some great information on there. The College of Trades has those, the trades training standards, anything new in the trades is on their site. The Apprenticeship Network is a fantastic committee in Oxford, Elgin, and Middlesex, and their website has a ton of information, and they keep it up to date. They are a fantastic website and a really good committee who does some great things with the apprenticeship system. And Apprenticeship.com is a provincial site. They were very well funded and very widely well known until a few years ago when unfortunately funding changed. They are now getting back on their feet again. I've asked them recently, what they're doing. They're getting back to be a provincial site. They said they have an average about 100 new applications and 10 new jobs posted a week, so they have a system where you can go on, post a resume, and apply for apprenticeship positions right on the site. There's a page on there where you can see all the new jobs posted without actually seeing the employer information, so I'd encourage someone to go on there before they maybe post the resume, just to make sure that, yes, there are jobs in their area before they go through that. And this is my last slide. I'm not sure if anyone knows exactly what this is, but it is it in a nutshell. So that is it in a nutshell for the apprenticeship system and trades talk in Ontario. Okay. Are there any other questions?